She's a champion rower on the world stage with more accolades than can be counted during her stellar career. But who could forget that race at the Tokyo Olympics? Emma Twigg claiming a gold medal for New Zealand in the single sculls. Crowds back home gathered to watch were on their feet with excitement. Grown men like Eric Murray cried. If it was an emotional moment for us, imagine how surreal it felt for Emma Twigg at 34, having been to 4 Olympics. This was her first medal. Having given up, then come back to rowing, facing many challenges along the way. And now she joins me. Kia ora, Emma.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well. Thank you so much for joining me. You're enjoying a little bit of downtime now after the Olympics?
Yeah, I've been very lucky to have had a couple of months of just cruising around New Zealand, getting to catch up with family and friends and not really thinking about rowing, which has been really nice.
Oh, that's so good, because it's such a different time for you right now, isn't it? You came back, there was a bit of a lockdown, but this lockdown must be quite different to the last lockdown.
Yeah, it definitely is. We were lucky to not be in lockdown before Tokyo. Looking back at, I think that it's so lucky that we didn't have any kind of interruption in that really intense time leading into Tokyo. We did, of course, the year before that with the postponement of the games. And so during that lockdown, we were training hard and trying to essentially do what we did on the water daily in our home gyms and ergs. So this one's been much different. I've actually quite enjoyed this one.
Absolutely. I think I saw some Instagram posts of yours through lockdown. You were getting quite creative with the old workouts in your house, weren't you?
Yeah, you did have to get creative. Keep it kind of fresh and interesting, because rowing on the erg is not exciting at the best of times.
Well, let's go back to the Olympics. You said it was surreal at the time and it's taken a while to sink in. Has it sunk in yet?
Yeah, I think it has. I think on reflection and especially sitting in MIQ and like absorbing that whole couple of weeks, I guess I just have a real sense of pride about what I'd achieved finally, what I knew that I always could do. And so, yeah, it has sunk in. I haven't probably got to share my medal with as many people as I would have hoped to in this time. But personally, it's been a really nice time of reflection.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you say it sunk in, talk us through what it was like from winning to say now. What have you reflected on?
I guess for me, my story's been a really long one, 20 years of work and ups and downs and moments where I have wondered whether I should continue, whether I actually did, lots of moments of self-doubt, wondering whether I did have what it took to be an Olympic champion. Obviously I went away from the sport, I came back. And so kind of sitting back and reflecting now and like I said before, the sense of achievement and satisfaction that I could do it, and that hopefully I've inspired a few other people to kind of either pick the tools back up or keep at what they're doing and push on and know that, if you've got a dream, then for sure you can achieve that.
I think you've definitely inspired a lot of people. We've been to 4 Olympics. What did you do differently this time?
I think this time I felt a real sense of calm and confidence, I guess, leading into the games that I hadn't probably in previous games. And I think a lot of that came from the team of people that I had around me, people that believed in me even when sometimes I didn't believe in myself. I just knew that we set out in this Olympic cycle to really tick off every single box, really focus on the detail and do things that in the past I knew I couldn't have done because of certain decisions that had been made for me. So yeah, it was just a real team effort. And when I lined up in Tokyo, I knew that I'd done everything that I possibly could, and I knew that if I raced the best race that I could, then I'd come out on top, and that's kind of the way that it transpired.
Do you think that comes with maturity, what you're talking about, the experience of knowing what it's like? Does that come with maturity, or can you get that just by mentally preparing yourself?
I think a lot of it does come from experience and maturity, and having experienced other things in life as well, knowing what is required of you and what kind of makes you tick as well. But in saying that, there's all sorts of Olympic champions out there that show up at their first Olympics and they achieve what they want to. So mine's definitely been a journey of discovery, I guess, but also, my big rock, I guess, in coming back to the sport was to be able to look back and just have no regrets. And in previous Olympic campaigns, I definitely did have regrets. In this one, I didn't. So that's, I guess, where the real satisfaction comes from.
Talk us through your race prep. Are you one of these people that's got the same thing, the same routine that you do every single time, or are you a bit more relaxed?
I'm definitely a relaxed person. I like to be relaxed and chat to people around me about things non-rowing related. And this time round, actually, I was really conscious about who I'd sit next to on the bus and what we'd talk about. And a lot of what we did on race day, we had drilled into us at all of these practice regattas and World Cups. And every time we race, we're essentially doing the same thing before we get on the water, whether it be a club regatta or a world champs. So we're very process driven. Kind of go through it before a race. I'll go back from the start of my race and write down where I need to be and what I need to be doing. But yeah, it's definitely for me about relaxing and kind of absorbing the moment.
And are you a big goal setter?
Yeah, I think you've got to be a big goal setter. I do have dreams and aspirations, and yeah, even as a documents written on my computer that I look back every now and then, and generally they're all focused around the same things. You know, improving my ergs, 2K erg score, or getting a faster time on the water, or getting fitter or stronger. So there's similarities throughout all of them, and probably the same thing that appeared on every single one of those documents was become a world champion, Olympic champion, world champion and Olympic champion. And, that remained there for 15 odd years, I guess.
Amazing. So just getting to the Olympics was a feat in itself with COVID, and then your coach was involved in a terrible car accident. How do you deal with those things that are outside your control?
Yeah, it was a real roller coaster of a couple of years. Obviously, the postponement of the games was part of that, but actually leading up to that, Mike had a terrible car accident, which actually put a question mark over his head as to whether he would be with me in Tokyo. So, looking back, I think everything happens for a reason with hindsight. And I think it's important to I guess, remain present and just make sure that every single day we're doing the detail really well, because if you get caught up in a disappointment or decide that it's you're not going to train one day or for a week, then that's kind of what catches up on you down the track. So I think people around me kept me pretty grounded during those times, and having that big goal to work towards was really crucial. But it's not to say that there weren't some really tough times and days where I just didn't want to do it.
Absolutely. And how do you put it behind you? How do you say, okay, that wasn't a great race, I'm just going to focus on the next race now?
I think it depends on the gravitas of what has just happened. Like a fourth placing at an Olympic Games takes a little while to get over, as opposed to having a bad session in the morning. But I guess they're all the same in some regard, and it's about, I guess, learning from what didn't go well, and then making sure that the next day you're doing it a little bit better. I guess for me a lot of it was a lot of self-reflection and honest self-reflection, and realizing what I needed to do better from previous Olympic campaigns. And then even in that Tokyo campaign, our team was really honest individually with each other about what we needed to sharpen up so that we could be where we needed to be.
Oh, that's great. And I guess that culture as well is really important within a team, is it? I mean, you're obviously in a single boat, but it's still, you're part of a big team.
Yeah, when I talk about my team, I talk about the people that I had around me, these experts that, my strength and conditioning coach, or my nutrition expert, or physiology, and led by Mike, my coach. So I'm an individual, yes, but I certainly wouldn't be able to achieve what I have without those people. And then, outside of that, again, is the New Zealand rowing team. And man, those other boats and other people in that team were so instrumental in my success, just through turning up daily and being the benchmark for me to work off. So I guess that's the special and unique thing about the team that we have at the moment.
And what about being at the Olympics and not having any family there? Your wife, Shah, she couldn't go. I mean, how hard was that?
Yeah, it was a strange one, and I think one that we'd mentally prepared for leading into it. We knew what we were going into, and we knew we wouldn't have people there. Our sport isn't one that is, full of fanfare, but it was really heartbreaking, actually, sitting in the bus on the way to the rowing venue and seeing these venues that were just empty, and having worked on the other side of the sport, I guess, and understanding the effort that goes into putting a games on and the finance that Japan had invested. It was really sad. When you're in the boat and in the zone, there's not a lot going on outside what's going on in the boats. So yeah, I felt for the athletes in the big stadiums where you could probably hear a pin drop. But for us, it wasn't too much of an impact. And thank goodness for things like Skype and video calls. You can pretty much contact anyone when you want to.
Did you have any idea of the pandemonium that was going on back in New Zealand?
Not really, little bits. And actually one of the first videos that I was sent was the one with yourself and Eric and his reaction. And yeah, it was obviously a very emotional time when I was on the podium and in those few hours afterwards, and I was getting calls from my people and the team that I didn't have in Tokyo. And I think everyone I spoke to we were pretty much blubbering to. But yeah, seeing the boys in tears, I guess that probably hit home to me that, what I'd invested personally was a huge amount, but it obviously showed to them and meant so much to them as well, and to a lot of New Zealanders. So that was, it was pretty cool.
It was really cool. So looking back on that, and you gave up the sport for a while and then you came back. I mean, how hard was that to come back to rowing?
To be honest, it was quite an easy decision when I eventually made it, because I realized the passion that I had for the sport. And I guess it all happened in a timely fashion. I'd been away at experience working for the IOC over in Switzerland. I went to a Winter Olympic Games, and then again, was immersed in the Olympics there in a very different experience. And that just reiterated to me what I wanted to do. So the decision to come back was quite an easy one, but then there was times within those first few months where I really questioned that, because my body was in all sorts of pieces, and there wasn't a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, and I just didn't know how quickly I would be back in shape. But it was amazing how quickly it all came back, and when it did, it felt like I was in the right place.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned the passion. So you obviously have the passion for rowing still, which is awesome. Let's take you right back when you first started. Your dad was a rowing coach. So I guess it was inevitable you were going to become a rower?
Yeah, maybe not inevitable. I loved playing hockey, and my first dream was to be a black stick. Kayla Whitelock and Emily Naylor, who are now legends of the sport, were my fierce competitors at Palmy Girls High School when I was at Napier Girls High School. And I kind of got into rowing through my brother. Dad was a cox at school at King's College, and then he took up rowing when he grew at university, and then ended up coaching my brother. And they both basically said to me, well, you've got really got no choice, because you're tall and strong, and you'd make a great rower. So yeah, didn't love it to begin with, but I hung in there, and here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So what didn't you like about it when you started?
I think it's a really hard sport. And as a novice, you basically have to commit to a year of just feeling a bit special in a boat, like lots of crabs being caught and water going in places that it shouldn't go. It's just a really technical sport, and when you're used to just being good at things and picking up a stick and having some hand-eye coordination and things coming a little bit naturally, rowing is really hard like that. So there were definitely moments where I questioned it, but what I think held me there and attracted me to stay was just the friendship and the camaraderie and the team. Again, the team of people there, and of all different ages and stages. And it was just, it was pretty cool going away on regattas and weekends and being around such different people.
Oh, that's great. Well, if you're looking back, if you were to say something to your young self when you started rowing, or maybe you were an up and coming rower, what advice would you maybe give yourself or someone else that was starting out?
If it was a rower, I would definitely say to them that things take time, and there's a lot of irony in me saying that now, 20 years down the track. But even at a young age, I think you really want success quickly. You want things now. I guess that's just the way that we are wired now. But in our sport, it's an endurance sport. It takes a lot of time. It takes time to create that endurance base and to learn the craft, that whole 10,000 hours concept. And I think pretty easy to give something up, but so much greater when you've faced some adversity as well.
Absolutely. Outside of rowing, personally, you've had some big moments. You got married to Charlotte, you bought a house, you're really settling in Cambridge. I mean, has it been a great couple of years?
Yeah, it certainly has been. It's been a big couple of years. I feel like I've found my feet a little bit. obviously getting married is a pretty big step, and yeah, I feel like I'm at a place in my life now where I'm fairly content and obviously proud of what I've achieved. But I think what Charles taught me is that, you need to kind of make the most of being present and take time to, I guess, smell the roses, as you'd say. And yeah, it's just a different way to look at life. And I guess that's why even now I'm continuing in the sport, because I still enjoy it, I still love it, and I still feel like I can give something back.
That's so cool. You're also a big advocate of LGBTQIA rights. How hard was it you as a gay rower growing up in the sport back then?
Yeah, it's a question that I get often asked, and to be honest, I feel very lucky that in our sport and within Rowing New Zealand, I've been very supported from that regard. I think it is obviously a personal journey to get to a place to feel comfortable about talking about my sexuality and to being open about it. But that wasn't necessarily as a result of any negativity amongst our team. So I feel really lucky to have got to that stage and it been so open. And now to feel like I'm in a position where I can really talk openly and hopefully help some young New Zealanders or people internationally, just to create some, I think, normality and create some role models for some young kids who may be struggling.
That's cool. And are you doing anything proactively about that? Do you get approached a lot by people?
Yeah, I get the odd message, which was awesome, because with social media these days you can have direct contact with those people. Also, just speaking about it, talking on podcasts. I guess the more that people can hear a story and identify, that may help in any way. And honestly, if I could help one person, then that would be job done.
Well, that's really cool. High performance sport has faced a lot of criticism on how we deal with athletes and their mental space. Do you think that's being addressed a bit better now?
I think it's a work in progress. I think mental health in general is something that's being spoken about a lot across the board, and I think it's been highlighted definitely in elite sport. And I guess it's the nature of the beast that we're in, that we're high performing athletes. There's a real singular focus going on in our brains, and often it's really hard to dissociate between sport and I guess what's going on in life, and so we do need support, and it is being talked about more, and I think obviously beautiful Liv Podmore's death was something that really brought that to fore even more. So it's unfortunate, a topic now where I think our national sporting organisations are kind of putting that to the top of their list of to-dos, which I think is really important, and hopefully will help athletes that are coming through our systems.
What does the future now hold for you? And then looking ahead, what is there next to achieve?
So next to achieve is I've recommitted to Rowing New Zealand for another year at least, and yeah, I guess moving forward, so long as I'm still enjoying the sport and I feel like I can contribute something and I'm happy doing it, then I'll keep going, because I think it's a really limited time in your life to be trying to be the best that you can be, and to have some positive influence on people. So we can reconvene a little bit down the track with any other potential opportunities.
Exactly. What's on the horizon next year? What championships are there?
Well, it's all very COVID dependent at the moment, but I think the idea is that we'll head over to Europe and do some World Cups and then a World Championships. That happens in every year when there's not an Olympics, and then all of a sudden you're in a Olympic qualification year, because it's a short Olympic cycle, which is also a little bit of a carrot being dangled as well, that I've got essentially 2 more world champs before there's an Olympics. So that's almost what my cycle looked like last time when I returned kind of halfway through the cycle. So
what do you think? Olympics in 3 years? Yes?
Who knows? I'm not going to say yes for sure, but it's something that I guess every day as I come out of my slumber of the last couple of months, it is more and more appealing. So we'll see how the next year goes.
Oh, well, we can't wait to see what happens. Thank you so much for joining me today, Emma Twigg, and all the best for the future.
Thank you.